Chris, welcome to the podcast. We're glad to have you on. Just before we get into a few questions, I just wanted to let our listeners know who you are for those who still haven't seen you on the various social media channels and around the hobby. Chris is an entrepreneur from the Boston area, and he's a sports card dealer, aka Costa Cards on Instagram. He's also a partner with Big Night Breaks, which is where I personally first heard of you, Chris. And their high production breaks really set them apart from other breakers, in my opinion. And as part of Big Night, Chris and his partners just opened a hobby retail 1,600 square foot store called Cardvault across from Gillette Stadium, home of the New England Patriots. And if that wasn't enough, Big Night is having its Causeway Card Show at the historic TD Boston Garden on January 8 and 9. So if you're in the area, go check it out. Hope I got all that right. Yeah?
What an intro.
Amazing.
Wow.
Clark has a journalism background.
I do. Former
I look
journalist.
back. you hear it all out loud, and it's like, God, we have too much going on.
No, it's awesome. Well, Chris, welcome.
Thank you guys for having me. Super excited to be here. Obviously, respect everything that the three of you have done and the businesses that you've built. So definitely looking forward to this conversation. Excited to kind of dig in with you guys.
Appreciate that. Yeah. And when we started this podcast, one of our goals was to start connecting with influencers in the hobby like yourself to talk about your journey and also pick your brain on some hobby issues. So first, maybe a good place to start is, how did you get into the hobby? Did you collect as a kid like all of us here and then get back into it during the recent hobby resurgence? Yeah. Tell us your story.
Yeah. My story is unique, but also not so unique now that we hear everybody's story. I collected my whole life. I've been a collector my whole life, ever since I can remember, ripping packs in the back seat of my mother's car. She'd drive me out once a week to the local hobby shop, and I'd grab whatever, my allowance would afford, and I'd, rip. And this was like in the 90s when, I was chasing like Nomar Garcia Parra. And
Love it.
So unfortunately, a lot of the stuff that like I accumulated as a kid is just really not worth much.
Worthless, yeah.
But yeah, like it just kind of went on my collecting journey from there, and fell out of it, right? And became more focused on physical sports. And was an athlete growing up, and continued to play baseball through college, and fell out of not love with the hobby, but fell out of focus with the hobby until about 4 years ago. Where I dove back in, and it was like it was really Bowman that brought me back into the hobby, and prospecting and chasing prospects, and the exciting, prospect classes that we've had over the last 4 or 5 years. Then it just snowballed and continued to snowball, as it has for so many of us, right? We're super fortunate to be in the space that we are, and super fortunate to have had this industry have the trajectory that it's had over the last 4 or 5 years. But yeah, that's really where it started, where it picked back up. And, of course, since, the day I got back in, things have just continued to grow and grow and grow and grow. And as the market grows, our collections grow. And as our collections grow, our interest grows. And, we're very fortunate to have all of the talent that we have in all of the major sports right now. But yeah, that's where, or how I got back into the hobby, and really to where things are today, which is
nice.
As you mentioned in the intro, is sort of getting out of control.
Yeah, no, it's a lot of those points that you made are very similar to our backstories. So totally hear you. It seems you dived deep into the hobby fairly quickly when you got back in, just by seeing like all the investments you've made, especially through the production of Big Night Breaks. Were you that bullish? Were you that confident that the hobby would continue to grow at that point? Or did you just think that you would go for the ride and see what happens?
Yeah, I think I'm definitely have been confident and bullish on sports cards and collectibles, for that matter, for a while. And I think, the moves that I've made and the partnerships that we've formed and the businesses that we've built are just kind of a manifestation of that confidence.
Yeah.
I think realistically, when I look back a year or 2 years from now, where my head was at that time, we were going into the pandemic and things were in question, right? We saw this trajectory heading into the pandemic that was, pretty linear, but growing. And then, if you guys remember, we kind of saw sports shut down, and we were all like, "Oh no, what do We've put all this money and invested all this money into these
That's
players
right.
sports that they're not even going to be on the field. Like we're in trouble.
Yeah.
And it was the complete opposite. And people started throwing their money into this industry, into this hobby, and my confidence continued to grow. And that was, I think it was part what you mentioned, taking a chance and just wanting to do this as a career and full time.
Yeah.
But also having confidence in the industry. There's so many different factors that boil into that confidence that we can talk about. But yeah, I think it's a mix of both. There's definitely some chance taking. You don't build businesses without taking chances, but also just bullish confidence in everything that we do.
Nice. Can I ask you, what did you do before you went full time into the hobby?
Yeah, I've been and spent my career in technology, and specifically in sales. So I've spent the last decade in enterprise software sales, working with large technology companies and banks and what have you, all different types of companies, putting solutions in place from a software and technology perspective. So have worked for big technology companies, have worked for small startups, and have been super fortunate and blessed throughout my career to have found success, and been in positions to be able to take chances.
Yeah.
But I think part of the things that I've learned in my career and in my ability to articulate messages and put together proposals and negotiate and find opportunity have translated really well into sports cards, and always have, right? So ever since I got back in. So I think, there's certainly some things that I've gleaned from my career that have lent well into the things that we're doing today.
Yeah, definitely shows. Yeah. So as we mentioned off the top, you guys just opened up a 1,600 square foot hobby shop, which looks amazing, by the way. Now when almost every business, not just in the hobby, but across industries, are looking to close brick and mortar stores and go completely digital, you went the other way. Why did you guys want to open a physical space for your sports card business?
Yeah, I think there's a bunch of different reasons. Our story as a company started with breaking, right? We started with a digital experience for our consumers, and we built a following and a digital following and built digital experiences that we tried to make different than anything that was offered out there. And we had some success doing that, right? We were able to intertwine, nightlife and entertainment and celebrities and athletes into the sports card world from a breaking perspective. And that's really, we saw Big Night Breaks, which you mentioned earlier, which is our breaking platform, have some quick and exciting success, which proved that Big Night as a company, which is the largest nightlife and entertainment company in the country. We have 17 venues, some of the biggest in top nightclubs and bars and restaurants in the world. Yeah. We decided that Big Night Breaks had proven that sports cards and nightlife and entertainment could exist together. And that's where myself and my partners at Big Night decided to go all in. And we wanted to provide an experience, an end-to-end experience that gave the consumer the ability to do everything sports cards with us under one roof. And a big part of that I have always firmly believe is putting something physically out there that the consumer can touch is super important. And it grounds the brand, it grounds the business, and helps build community around the business. And Cardvault is our physical manifestation of that idea, and gives our customers a place to congregate, to buy, to sell, to trade, to get things graded that they may break with us, to come and meet us and our team, and is really kind of this a central part of this end-to-end experience that we're building that is 100% digital. We don't want to get away from our digital presence, but also now physical. And the card stores, this being the first one at Patriot Place, yes, we want to do sales in the store, and yes, we want to have sales and have successful revenue, but it's more so an opportunity to get our brand out there than anything. So that's really the high level idea behind it.
Okay, I love that play. And I heard that you guys are thinking of opening a couple more stores.
Yeah, we've got some pretty lofty plans. Our second location will be open in December.
Nice. Wow.
And that is at TD Garden, which is where our Cosmo show will be.
Sweet.
We're super excited about that. We have a third location in the works, and then potentially a fourth location in the works, which poses obviously tremendous challenges from, this is not an industry or a business that has generally scaled really well.
Right.
Brick and mortar local card shops.
Yeah.
It's tough. You inventory management, order management. How do you manage all these singles across multiple locations on top of the wax? But we have a recipe that we think is super scalable, like beyond 4 stores.
Amazing.
And the crux of that is technology, and you have to have good technology. Tying in my background from a technology perspective, and have good systems in place that can allow you to do that. But yeah, Cardvault's growing. There's going to be multiple locations. It's super important locations that we're super excited about.
That's awesome to hear. Yeah. And I know on Instagram, I saw that you got Robert Kraft to come to your opening. How did that happen?
Yeah.
You just asked him?
Yeah, no, just asked him. I gave him a call and asked him to come down. So Big Night, as I mentioned, is, leader in nightlife and entertainment. We have many locations. It's a very large business, and Mr. Kraft, Robert, is a friend of Big Night. He's one of our investors and believes in our businesses and supports our businesses, including Cardvault. He has been super supportive of Cardvault. Obviously, he is our landlord, place, but more importantly, a friend to our core business, which is Big Night. And him supporting us is super important to us. We obviously build credibility with his support. Him being here for our ribbon cutting has helped us build credibility. He's obviously a very influential figure in the sports world. So we're super blessed to have folks like him and many others that are very influential in the sports world be friends of ours. And that's one of the reasons that I thought it was worthwhile taking a chance and partnering with Big Night, because the resources that Big Night has and the friendships and the relationships and the network that Big Night has makes so much of what we're doing so much more possible.
Right.
Yeah. And again, on Instagram, I've seen some of the connections you've already made through Big Night Breaks. Some very impressive A-listers, like you mentioned Steve Aoki, Kraft, who we're talking about, and Shaq, I think I saw you with. Was there anyone you were particularly stoked about meeting in person?
Yeah. Well, first off, it's always exciting to be with Mr. Kraft. He's got an aura about him. He's obviously an incredibly powerful person and incredibly influential, incredibly successful, incredibly intelligent, all of those things are going on and on. So that's always, an experience. Steve Aoki is a really good friend of ours and has been super supportive. And Steve is electric a human as you'll meet.
Yeah, for sure.
But of all the people that we've done anything sports card related, I would say I was most excited to spend time with Dana White.
Wow. Okay.
When UFC Prism came out, we were fortunate to be the first people to break it with him. Awesome. So we broke a box of UFC Prism Hobby with him on release day, on our live stream. And Dana's another friend of the business and somebody that's obviously super influential and super powerful and all of those great things. But that was just a really cool experience, opening UFC Prism with the owner and the president of UFC.
Unreal.
That's crazy. Yeah,
that's crazy.
You remember getting any big hits when you
any decent autos?
Yeah, we pulled a George St. Pierre auto, which was super
no way.
Repping Canada here.
We pulled a blue McGregor, which was sweet.
Wow, that's nice.
But more so just like the conversation of the not so big hits. Like we pull out fighters and he's like, oh, they're on my card this weekend. They're on our card next weekend.
No way. Yeah.
It was just a really cool experience. And, Dana's such an engaging guy and just like larger than life that was just that one. I got off the live stream and I looked at my team and I was like, that was too cool. That was one of the coolest things I've ever done. So pumped about that.
That's pretty sweet. All right. I also want to ask you, we've seen the hobby change so much, even in the past few years. How do you think the hobby will evolve in the future? Or maybe what would you like to see in the hobby as it continues to grow?
Yeah, well, I mean, we obviously see so many big announcements and big shifts and big things coming and changes in our industry. I think technology is number one. the more we can introduce technology into our industry, the more that we can rely on technology in our industry, the more that we can get good data in our industry, right? From an investor's perspective, if I'm out there buying cards, the more data I have at my disposal, the better decisions I can make, the better systems that I have that I can leverage, the more scalable my business is, the more opportunity there is from a technology perspective, the more investment comes into our industry. So I think that's the most exciting part. And what I think is really the biggest opportunity for change is technology. There's no true order management system and inventory management system that's designed for sports cards, right? We are piecing together different solutions to come up with a solution that's friendly to sports cards. There's no perfect analytical tool right now to help with markets, right? There's good ones, and some do some things better than others, but none of them do everything perfectly. So there's opportunity there. The grading companies continue to invest in technology and add technology to their stack, and that's a big opportunity, and I think something that's going to transform our industry. And with that, and with all of that opportunity, whenever there's gaps and opportunity for investment in technology, we're going to start to see big money come in, right? That's where we're going to start to see big investment, and that's where our hobby, right, that we all have fun in, becomes an industry, which it already has, right? Like the numbers that are out there are insane. The market cap, the market valuation, we're an industry, and we're a legitimate industry. But you start to see private equity, large scale investment, big tech, big names. That's where we start to become what we really deserve to become, which I think is super, super exciting.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I've used my excuse as a journalist to ask all the questions, but I want to open it up to Hyung and John. Do you guys have any questions you want to ask Chris?
Well, one, I remember back when we started talking about you're wondering if you should sell that orange Tatis Sapphire auto, whether you should hold or sell. I remember that conversation.
We all have our L's, right?
No. Chris, I honestly don't know what you ended up doing with that. We kind of just let that happen, because I was like, man, that's a huge card. Like that's a big time card, right? So I didn't know what you did with it. So we talked about it earlier on the show, and I was like, you know what? That's a question I gotta ask him. What'd you do with that?
Gone.
It's gone, eh? You sold it, eh?
I sold it right around when we were talking about it. And that was like my first big sale. Up until that point, I had just hoarded. I was holding.
Yeah.
And it was cards in, no cards out. And that was like the first, outside of like eBay listings on lower end stuff and moving through some of like the commons and the base. That was my first big hit that I pulled out of a pack that I moved.
That's crazy.
But, at the time, ironically, at that time, and we're talking about the 2019 Sapphire Fernando Tatis rookie autograph. I graded it. It was a 9.5/10, beautiful card out of 25, amazing. And like that's when Tatis's market was as hot as it was the hottest market on the planet. Little did we know that, what at the time was a $3,500 card, and one of the bigger cards out there was probably going to be a $15,000 to $20,000 card, if not more. But what helped me move it was I actually got incredibly lucky. I opened a box of Topps Chrome, and I pulled the Orange Wave rookie auto.
That's what we were talking about. Yeah, that's
there you go.
And you had a record sale on that one.
Yeah,
like that was a big time sale.
So
and that's
the Sapphire I sold for like $3,000. And I look back and it's like, but now you go through enough cards where it's just like you gotta take your lumps and keep moving, right?
Yeah.
And a sale, a profit's a profit.
Good advice.
Take the money off the table. But then the Orange Wave I sold privately for I think it was $22,500.
That's nice. I had that card. Wow. That was my dead wrong card. I sold that at like 1,400. So when you went like this, that was me. I had the PSA. It was a pop 3. I panic sold right during that time of the COVID.
The shoulder injury or the back injury.
Yeah.
One of those,
It was before that. This was when COVID the shutdown happened. It was when you were talking about it. Yeah. So that's when I panic sold. I sold the Sapphire, the Cunha Sapphire to Phil Hughes, And then I sold that orange wave, and I that's the one I regret. I sold that, and I was like, good God. And I remember you told me.
You and I connected early on.
Yeah.
As I mentioned earlier, I got back into this as a baseball collector. Baseball has always been my first love. I played baseball. I know you played baseball.
Yeah.
And, I was always kind of envious of, your collection. You had built up such an amazing baseball collection and, continue to bring in great cards. If I remember correctly, you were heavy on Vlad, right? You brought in a bunch of Vlad.
I did.
Yeah.
I did. Yeah.
Nice.
I told you. For me, you remember that I was buying Vlad. Everybody was off of him. I'm saying this guy's way too cheap. I just loaded. I absolutely loaded up on Vlad. Yeah. That's funny. You remember that. Yeah.
I love it. That's great. Yeah. Tatis has come and gone through, listen, I certainly have taken this thing to level after level after level. And I've gone from personal collection to, dealer as a personal dealer, but, buying, selling and trading at more of a rapid clip to then building a business around it. Now it's a business with inventory, and I look at things differently. And it's funny how that happens when you start a business, not that any of us are doing isn't a business, but when you start a brick and mortar business, the way you look at the cards changes. Now, I certainly maintain a PC,
right?
And I continue to maintain several cards that I own. I own all the cards with my team, but there's some that that are mine,
right?
And they're always mine,
right.
And those are typically like on the Brady side of things, just because of where we are.
Sure.
But it's funny because the way you look at the cards changes. They become inventory, and it becomes the lifeblood of your business. You have to go through it, right? And you reinvest the money, or you trade up or trade down.
Right.
And your inventory and your collection takes on a mind of its own.
Yeah.
So that's been super interesting to watch. But the things like the Brady Contenders.
Damn.
Brady Refractor.
Oh my gosh.
That refractor is sick.
The beauty.
That's my absolute favorite. The Curry Refractor.
Yeah, there it is.
Oh man. Curry, man.
So some pretty sweet stuff that I'm super excited about. I have plenty of other really cool stuff that we can hit on quickly, but that's like what's changed the most. What's been fascinating to me is because as a collector, when you and I first connected, the way I looked at cards was so different than it is now, because now I see how it's okay to move on from things,
right?
Because there's always going to be other cards that I'm going to love just as much, unless they're,
True.
Brady Refractor.
Right.
Yeah. It is interesting how I look at cards now versus how I did even a year ago. Right. So I always think that's fascinating.
No, that's good advice, because that's the whole point. It's always progressing and, growing that stack of inventory that you have, right? Whether you're trading up, you're always trying to, improve your portfolio, your hand. Right. And I think that's part of the hustle. And I totally see it. Like, you're probably looking at it in a total different perspective. But at the end of the day, it's probably something that you've never thought you'd probably get into, like the $50,000, $100,000 cards.
Crazy.
That's when it starts getting real, right? So
yeah, it does. But there's different pockets of this business, right? Like when we're collecting, we look at things from an investment perspective, right?
Right.
And we're looking at things. Okay, this is a 3-month hold. This is a 6-month hold. This is a year hold. And when you start to look at things from like a dealer's perspective, right? When you're going to shows and moving through inventory, it may be a quicker clip than you were as a private collector or investor.
For sure.
You still want to have some of those plays, right? You still want to have a portion of your inventory towards investment, right? And you want to look at things and time the market. But you also have a portion of your inventory that's got a cycle. And even if I think a Kyler Murray NTRPA is
that's sweet.
I think a Kyler Murray or NTRPA is a good 6-month hold. But if I bought it 3 months ago and I can make a 20, a 40, a 50% profit, well, that's money I can reinvest into more Kyler Murray.
Right.
What have
Makes
you,
sense.
right?
Yeah. Makes sense.
So there, it becomes a portion of this business, and my business is still very much centered around the things we did a couple of years ago, a few years ago, where it's okay, let's put some money into Tatis. Let's put some money into Vlad or Acuna.
Yeah.
But then, portions of it are just, it's out. My cards are out, and somebody walks in and they say, "Hey, I'll take that card. It's theirs."
Right? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Very different from that.
100%. Yeah, no, it's literally it's scalable what you're doing, just on a a way bigger level, right? And it's a place where people are willing to emotionally buy too, right? Once they're in the place, they have this feeling of, you know what, this I'm going to do it. There's no other place that I would drop $20,000-$30,000 or trade in my high end cards to liquidate, and then you have a setup where you could basically monetize on it, and that's amazing. You could do that on that kind of scale. So it's like interesting to kind of see that. It's
a great way to put it, right? It's you have to, over a certain amount of time, when you do enough deals and you move through enough cards, you start to realize you have to take some of the emotion out of it. Right. It is a very emotional,
absolutely,
very good advice. Yeah.
Such an emotional space. This is such an emotional industry. We love cards. We love them. We actually love them.
Yeah.
So to move them is a mental leap.
Right.
But you make that leap enough, it starts to become, muscle memory. So I 100% agree.
That's awesome.
Wow. Chris, you have like a sentimental PC moving off some of the high roller stuff?
Yeah, the sentimental stuff for me is always Brady. And it's tough because like Brady's market is the market right now.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's weird for me to say like my sentimental market is Brady's market, but like I grew up watching Tom Brady. I was in middle school watching Tom Brady win Super Bowls, and I was in middle school going to the parades. And like he became my, idol. And that's just a product of me living and growing up where I grew up. I grew up right in the heart of New England. And, I was very, very lucky to be a part of, like I was in the locker room, but like I was very lucky to witness the things that he did on the football field, and, I think generally that's always where like my emotions take me outside of being a baseball collector. And as a baseball collector, Ken Griffey was it.
Oh yeah.
For all of us.
89 upper deck. Yeah.
89 upper deck. The 89 Tiffany is always like a dream card of mine, and I've had a couple of them now, and again, the emotion they move. Love them.
Yeah.
But 89 Griffey Tiffany will always be a card that like, if I had to leave this industry and walk away with a box of cards, that would be it.
Nice.
Wow.
Nice. Yeah, it's funny you say that, because when I got back into the hobby around the same time as you, 4 or 5 years ago, the first card I bought again was when I had disposable income, was the 89 upper deck PSA 10. Yeah. Love it.
Great card. He's got such a baby face, right? It's like the Curry. It's like the Curry rookie.
I know.
It's got that lore because it's like, who the hell is that?
Who's that kid?
Yeah.
So, with Griffey and his face and how young he looks in that card, it's so iconic.
For sure.
It obviously, and it's at the crux of like a huge shift that happened in this space, right? Like the 89 Griffey was like, that was the tipping point. Because there were so many of them printed.
Right.
It's why everything imploded.
Yeah. Right. That's right. That was the catalyst.
It's like the iconic card that we all love, but it also like dismantled an entire.
So funny. True. All right.
Yeah.
It's great.
All right. If you don't mind, Chris, we'd like to just wrap up this interview with 5 quick fire questions. We appreciate your time, of course. And if we could just ask you these 5 quick fire questions, all related to hobby in some way, that'd be great. You ready for that?
Okay. Hot seat. Here we go.
All right. Well, yeah. All right, here we go. Number 1, what's your favorite sports card you currently own and why?
Tom Brady refractor, Brady's only chrome parallel in existence.
Nice. Okay.
Amazing.
That's true.
Amazing.
Number 2, what's your holy grail card?
Ooh, I hate to stay on the Tom Brady train. The Tom Brady championship ticket contenders.
Of course. All right. Okay, sticker autos. Get rid of them or you don't mind them?
Don't love them, but need them.
Okay. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, I think it's so difficult to produce sports cards and have autographs at scale without stickers. I think it also increases the value of on-card autographs.
Right.
So I think on-card autographs become that much more important with stickers in the game.
Okay,
Right.
understood.
Good answer.
Number 4, coolest fellow collector you met in the hobby.
Ooh, coolest fellow collector I've met in the hobby.
Or one of.
One of. My best friend in this industry is Mike at MC Sports Cards.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Mike is insanely inspirational in how he does business. He's a young kid that has built an empire and has one of the most insane collections on the planet, but also runs this as a business that I've built a lot of what we do around. So Mike is just is one of the coolest out there.
Nice. Shout out to MC Sports Cards.
Shout out MC.
And lastly, number 5, being from Toronto, on our podcast, we love talking about Vladdy. We love talking about Bichette. Are we homers or are they both legit?
They're both legit. Both low.
There you go.
Yeah.
I think you guys are in an insane spot. It's incredible what the amount of talent that Toronto has right now, the amount of young talent that Toronto has. I think Vlad is generational talent. I think, he overcame a lot of doubts this past season. Bo is in his shadow and I think is just as talented.
Yeah.
If not more.
Agreed.
So dynamic, so incredibly talented. And then, the other young guys around that roster, I think are studs. So Hernandez and Biggio and it's
yeah.
special. Watch out though, the Red Sox.
No,
Hey, it's funny because I always push Rafael Devers, one of my favorite players.
Happy Scoops, baby. That's my man.
These guys know. He's gotta maybe include some salads or something. Yeah, you don't want to let him be like Pablo Escobar, right? So
no.
Or sorry, Panda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We definitely don't want him to be like Pablo Escobar.
That's what I was gonna say.
We don't want him to be like the Panda.
True, both are.
Either would be good options.
Yeah.
I stand corrected. All right, Chris, really appreciate your time, and we look forward to connecting again with you soon.
Yeah, guys, thanks for having me. Awesome, had a blast, and I'll talk to you all soon.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, Chris.
Nice meeting you.
All right, buddy.